Good afternoon. Today we'll be discussing test 12 of Magic of Minds test series. So this test is regarding economics. So like every question in every test in this test also we'll discuss what are the parts of the question that needs to be answered and what is the structure that needs to be followed and what are the content that should be kept inside and what are the points that you should write to get extra marks. So in that manner, we'll continue the same discussion for this test also. So there will be 20 questions. First 10 will be 10 marks. So regarding the first question, they are asking what are the different approaches for measurement of national income. This becomes the first part of the question. So you should write about approaches like product-based approach or income-based approach or service-based approach. Like there will be 3-4 approaches. You should discuss about 3-4 approaches. Then they are asking what is the difficulty in the estimation of national income. So there are some issues in measuring the national income. So one such issue is we don't have any sufficient data regarding the income of different sectors. So this is the first issue. Like that you can write second issue containing regarding the process or statistic that should be used or the procedure that should be followed or the issue of base year. So these are all the issues that you should mention in the second part of the question. In third part, they are asking what are the steps that are taken to improve accuracy. So to improve accuracy, the government of India has taken different steps. So first you should write about the institution which carries out national income, which is nothing but CSO, which is formed by clubbing of NSO and NSSO. Sorry, CSO and NSSO formed now new organization called as NSO, which will give out this national income. So there you should write regarding the base year changes, the enhancement of usage of data. These are all the things that you should mention, and you can also write in the conclusion regarding the international practices. So in the first part of the question, you should write about national income. That is nothing but the total flow of goods and services within a country. So first you should write about product or value added method. So in the product method, nothing but how many products are you producing from one industry or how much value addition are you providing. Based on that, you can evaluate the national income. So in that, there are some issues such as there is no data available or it is completely non-monetized. Like for example, in agriculture sector, we can use barter systems or the products. There are no money involved in that. Then we will not get any estimation of income from there. And there are some self-consumption goods. Those goods, some MSMEs produce goods for their own self-consumption. So that is also one more issue. Then you can write about constant prices. The second method is regarding income method. Like whenever there are some products that are produced, there are some factors of production that are taking place. For example, land, labor, etc. So whatever are the wages or interest that you are paying on these inputs, based on that you can evaluate income. So, but there are some issues. First is there is no accurate data, and there is some issue regarding the estimation of how much wages are there and the changes due to inflation targeting. The third is regarding expenditure method. The expenditure method is very useful method and very accurate method. It is nothing but based on your income, how much are you spending. So evaluating your spending methods, they can find out what is your income. There are 3 methods. Then you can write about CSO or NSO, which is now called as. They have adopted United Nations Systems of National Accounts. If you write this, you get some extra marks because this is an international institution and these are the standards set by that institution. So if you write UNSNA, then it is very much useful or you can get some extra marks or as a fact. In the first part they have did is changing the base year. So when you change the base year, the inflation effects will be very much reduced. And second thing is regarding the widening of the data pool. As you have seen in all the methods, you don't have accurate data. So the government is focusing on getting new data. For that, they are using data regarding MCA21 or regarding NSSO, agriculture census, etc. Based on these complex systems, the government is trying to get the data. And third is regarding changes in calculation of agriculture income. So based on nowadays, we are not having much good calculation of agriculture income. Now they are trying to bring in some changes based on this committee recommendation, which is called as NCERT committee. So in this way, you can start and you can end by also saying how different countries are using their income methods, whether it is based on expenditure or whether it is based on their product based or value addition. Based on that, you can conclude also. Then the second question is regarding concept of GDP deflator. GDP deflator is nothing but division of normal GDP by real GDP. It is nothing but when to find out inflation, how much inflation is there. So it is an accurate indicator of inflation because it has more wider goods. For example, nowadays if we see how inflation is calculated, we will take a basket of goods. Say for example, we are trying to find inflation using pen, pencil, eraser, and sharpener. So we'll take all this into a basket and find out the price of basket in 2010. Then in 2022, how much is the price of the same basket? Whether it had increased or whether it had decreased. If it had increased, by how much rate it had increased? This is nothing but inflation. But the major issue here is that the goods that are taking in the basket are very limited. We are taking only 3-4 goods, but not the entire goods. So to address this, we can use GDP deflator because GDP contains every product that is produced in a domestic nation. So by calculating GDP deflator, we can exactly find how much inflation is there. But there are some issues also. Some issues is one, GDP deflator only has products that are produced within the country, not internationally. Like for example, if you are importing petrol, which is very much useful or the prime engine for growth of India, but in GDP deflator, petrol will not be there because petrol is mostly imported and only GDP contains domestically produced goods. We may have value-added petrol from refineries, but not crude petrol. In the same way, GDP is coming only in quarterly terms, that is for every 4 months. But inflation changes abruptly for every 1 month also. Take for example the price of potatoes, onions, and tomatoes. See how much they are changing for every month and how much variation is there. If we wait for quarterly returns, then we can't even target how inflation can be. We can't target inflation, and it will be a huge impact on the wages and also living conditions of different people. So these are all things you should mention. First, you can write about GDP deflator is nothing but nominal by real GDP into 100. The first part you should write about. Then briefly you should write about what is nominal, what is real GDP. It is based on the base year and current year. So if you can briefly mention that in the side, it is very much appreciable. Then the second thing is why. Second part of the question you should write about why GDP deflator is better tool. Like you should write about advantage. And you can write about range of goods. Then you can write about consumption patterns. And third is regarding the negative aspects why you are not using GDP deflator. Here you can use that you are not using imported goods. Then you can write about it is available only for quarterly basis. In the end, you can write why RBI is not interested in using GDP deflator as a conclusion. Then the third question is regarding monetization of fiscal deficit. So first you should know about what is fiscal deficit. So for every fiscal year, the government is bringing in budgeting. So in every budgeting, there will be some borrowing capacities or something. Every budget is borrowable budget. Like we'll have a budget with some dip so that we can spend more than which we are earning so that the economy expands. So this gap is called a fiscal deficit. So why do we need to have a fiscal deficit? Nothing but to have an expanding economy. For every government or for every country, we are targeting or we have a vision for an expand economy. So to monetize this, like to get this fiscal deficit, there are different ways. One is borrowing. You can borrow directly from some international organization or some country as a bilateral loan. Or the second thing is you can directly print money. How much ever money you need, you can print that amount of money to monetize this fiscal deficit. But there are some positive effects also, some negative effects also. One positive effect is nowadays we are seeing that due to crowding out effect. Crowding out effect is nothing but government is borrowing from the market. So the private player does not have any money to borrow from the market. So the private players are moving away from the Indian market. So there is a type of crowding out effect because the amount of loan available in the market is very limited. If you take the scenario in the reverse situation where there is an infinite number of notes or infinite number of money that is present in the economy, then this crowding out effect will be not there. Instead, there will be crowding in effect. More investments will be coming into the country. And second thing is based on debt sustainability. You can pay off how much ever debt you need. And third thing is regarding sovereign credits. So India has very poor sovereign credits. It is around BBE minus, I guess. So if you can monetize, you can improve sovereign credits also. But there are how many positive effects are there? More than that, there are more negative effects of monetization. One such negative effect is there will be a demand push inflation. Like everyone has money, so due to this, everyone can buy goods. Due to this, there will be an inflation in the medium and long term. And the second thing is regarding the value of currency. If you have more notes that are printed, then the value of currency will be very poor. Due to which we will have huge hyperinflation and your value will be drastically dropped. This happened in Venezuela and Colombia, in some Latin American countries. So to avoid that, we should avoid monetization of physical deficit. Even the RBI is not focusing upon. Earlier, FRBM and Statutory Act used to ban such kind of monetization of fiscal deficit. But in 2017, there has been amendment which had said that we can monetize fiscal deficit in certain circumstances. So based on the circumstances, we can use, like for example, when there is a high inflation or there is some sudden catastrophe, maybe a war or maybe some pandemic. So based on COVID pandemic, this question may be one of the questions that you should read upon and ponder upon and collect some of the points regarding this monetization of fiscal deficit. So first you should write about what is fiscal deficit, and second part you should write about monetization, and third part you can write about FRBM Act. In the fourth part you should write about advantages, then you can write about disadvantages. First they have written regarding disadvantages. One is the inflation, which I have discussed, that is the increasing the price. Then the second part is the devaluation of currency. Your currency does not have any value. And third is regarding inefficient spending. When you have more amounts in your hand, then you can spend in anything. So government will be spending in not in priority sector, but in any sector, and there will be more corruption also. These are social aspects that you should remember upon. And there are the positive impacts also. One is sovereign ratings. When you have huge amount of money, then you can easily pay off your debts. Then your rating will be improving. When your rating is improved, then you can get in more investments from foreign countries. Then you can write regarding corroding effect, which I have already discussed. Then in immediate term, there will be very minimal effect on inflation, but we should be seeing it even medium and long term also, which will have huge impact. Then the third question is regarding the demand pull and cost push factors of inflation. First, you should write about what is meant by inflation. There is second part of the question you should write regarding highlight some of the monetary and physical measures that should be taken to control inflation. So first you should write about inflation. Inflation is nothing but rise in prices. So you should write what is inflation. Second part of the question is discuss regarding demand pull and cost push. So you should briefly describe what is that and what are the factors that are involved. So for example, in cost push inflation, if the factors of production's cost has been increased, say for example, petrol price had been increased, then the transportation cost will be increased. So input cost of transportation increase, then the price of product also increase. This is a cost push inflation. Or for example, there are some laborers which are used in production, so they have gone an indefinite strike. So the production will be halted. That is also cost push. But for sometimes there will be wage increase. So due to wage increase, also the final product increases. So this is also demand cost push inflation. So whenever the cost of the product, like the factors of production cost increases, then the final product also increases. This is cost push inflation. The second part of the question is regarding demand pull. In demand pull inflation, when you have large amount of money in the hands of people, then the demand increases. So due to this demand, the price of the product will be increased. Say for example, there is one ice cream and there are two people. Both of them have 10 rupees each. So both of them will bid only 10 rupees. But for example, both of them has 500 each, then they can bid up to 500. So the cost of the price of the ice cream from 10 rupees gone to 500 rupees because they have money to spend. So this is called as demand push inflation. So I should demand pull inflation. So I should write briefly about these two things and what are the factors. So first you should write in the first introduction, you should write about inflation. Then you should write what is demand pull. That is about how factors that are causing demand pull. Consumption pattern changing, raising population, government expenditure, monetization of fiscal deficit. And I can write about cost push. Cost push is nothing but increase in wages, increase in indirect taxes, infrastructure bottlenecks, or seasonal and cyclic reasons. These are all things you can write. Then second part of the question they are asking about what are the measures she should take to control inflation. One is regarding monetary measures. Monetary measures is nothing but the measures that RBI takes to control inflation. What are the tools that are there in the hands of RBI? One is called repo rate. Repo rate, then there is reverse repo rate, then there is bank rate. So repo rate is nothing but the cost at which RBI lends to banks. So if the RBI increases the cost of repo rate, then the banks will not take much amount from RBI. So the supply of money in the economy will be reduced. So increasing repo rate. In the same way, reverse repo rate. Reverse repo rate is nothing but banks giving money to RBI. If they increase the reverse repo rate, then the banks will be not interested in giving money to people. Rather, they will be interested in giving their money to RBI. Then also, inflation will be controlled. Second thing is regarding fiscal policies. So in fiscal policies, you should see that revenue deficit or fiscal deficit should be minimized, and there should be not enormous spending, like huge spending on abrupt things or freebies. These should be reduced to address the physical part of inflation. So in the physical part, you should write about government efforts. Maybe it should be like through budgeting or through other auxiliary institutions. So these are the things you should mention in controlling inflation. So first you can write about credit management, tighter monetary policy, which is nothing but repo rate, reverse repo rate. You can also write about quality control, like you can call banks to reduce their margins, or you can persuade them not to give loans to some individuals. These are all qualitative methods. Then there is open market operations. Then last is regarding fiscal measures. Here you can write about cut down their own expenditure. You can increase taxes on the people so they don't have money to, like there will be no demand pull. So these are the things you should write. And the next question is regarding fifth question is regarding rationale behind gender budgeting. So in India, if you see, there is a gender divide or gender gap, where the male and female are not placed at equal footing, rather than female is placed at a footing lower than male. So to bring both of them at an equitable level or at a same level, the government is trying to use different means to get to this level. One such mean is gender budgeting. So in every budget, under every ministry and every department, there will be a gender factor, like how much they will be spending on certain scheme on women. So what is the impact that it will have? So what are the outcomes that it may provide and how to improve their outcomes? So these are all the things that gender budgeting will focus upon. But there are certain challenges. One such challenge is that we are not having adequate skilled labor force or skilled manpower to draw or draft such a budget. So there is one such issue. Second issue is we don't have data about how it is impacting. It should be there at local level, which local institutions like district administration should take upon. And third thing is regarding the patriarchal mindset even in the Lok Sabha that you can write at the end. So these are the things that are faced in implementation. So first you should write about what is gender budgeting. Then you should write about why do we need gender budgeting, or what are the advantages, which you have said that to bring in the female and male into same equitable level. And then you can write about incorporation of gender analysis. So it is nothing but a way to focus upon getting women empowerment. These are the things you can write about. Then next thing is about what are the challenges. First, the challenge, as we have discussed, there is no data in India regarding every small aspect which the district administration should focus upon and collect data and enumerate the data to Parliament. Second is regarding there is some opposition regarding there is no evidence. Like if you even have gender budgeting, that is not enumerating or getting into the positive sphere. So there is one more issue that is there. Second is limitation of parliamentary invention. Then there is no institutionalized. There is no system. There are no people who are working upon this. So there is no political will to institutionalize also. Then you can write about methodological inaccuracies, because most of the people are not aware or they are not having well skill to focus such or bring in such programs in India. Then the next question is regarding non-performing assets in India and what are the steps that should be taken to address this. And they're asking about factors. In the first, you should write about what is an NPA. NPA is nothing but an asset which is not giving any returns, and also there is no repayment of interest or actual amount for more than 90 days. This you should write about. And you can even write about the sub-classification of NPAs regarding SMA 0, 1, 2, 3. And based on, you can write about in a small table from 0 to 30 days, 31 to 60, 61 to 90. And greater than 90 days, if there is no repayment of interest or actual amount, it's called as NPA. This is your brief introduction you should write, and the table can give you some extra marks. Then you can write about what are the factors why there is such NPAs. One factor you can write about global financial crisis, and it is also, then you can write about inaccuracies in even the banking system. Banking system will give loans to anyone without much looking into deeply into how they are spending. And third is regarding the politicization of bank boards. So due to politicization of bank boards, there is huge corruption, and also the banks are not giving loans based on objective criteria but based on subjective advantages. So these are all led to the high level of NPAs. And most of the time, we did not even enumerate or count how many NPAs are there in India. But when due to then RBI Governor Raghuram Ranjan, he had intervened and he had calculated how much NPAs are there. And after that, we are focusing upon reducing these NPAs. So we got in different measures. One such measure is 4 R's. Reduce. Then you should write about recapitalize, reduce NPAs, recapitalize, and you should also reinvent the entire system. So such that there are 4 R's which we should focus upon. Then now the government is actually in the recognize. First is recognizing of NPAs. Then you should find out ways to reduce the NPAs. Third is regarding recapitalization. Fourth is complete reforming. So in the first part, they are now recognizing the NPAs based on sub-classification on different criteria and whether such an asset will become an NPA or not. Second is the focusing upon reducing the NPAs. For reducing NPAs, the government had bought in bad banks, which will buy out all the NPAs from different banks, and they can reduce the NPAs load on this thing. And the second thing is also provisioning. Provisioning is nothing but if there is an NPA, then the bank should keep some amount of credit as a provision. And the third part is regarding the recapitalization. So regarding this, the government had bought in recapitalization bonds, which are a long-term bonds. So the banks will invest into these bonds and they can recapitalize. This is based on the criteria of Basel III norms. Based on Basel III norms, every bank should have certain capital that should be there in the bank. So recapitalization bonds is getting to this target. And the fourth is regarding reform. Reform the entire process. For this, the government had bought in Mission Indradhanush, and which had the 7 criteria and also Bank Boards Bureau. This Bank Boards Bureau will have managers at the highest level. Appointment of managers and managing them, and also looking after the investments and credit that these banks have given out. So these are the steps that are taken. We should briefly mention everything under the E subheading: recognizing, reducing, then recapitalization and reforming. So first you should write about what is NPA. Then you should write about factors. Factors you can write about 3, 4, covering every aspect of stakeholder. Then you should write about the steps that are taken. These are the things you should focus upon. And in conclusion, you can write about we should holistically look towards this, even bringing stakeholders from corporate sectors also. This can be in your conclusion. So, next question is regarding FRBM Act. So there are some shortcomings observed. What are the shortcomings? FRBM Act is nothing but these are the commitments made by the government regarding their reduction in the fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, budget deficit, everything. Like these are the commitments given by the government that we will reduce fiscal deficit by this amount by this year, and revenue deficit to 0 by this year. And we should these are all deficit. There then the second part of the act, there is also this medium term strategy. So every government, if they are saying that we will reduce, say, fiscal deficit to 3% by 2030, then they are stating this on 2022. Then they should also bring in medium term and short term plans, like how will they reduce the medium, like fiscal deficit? What are their plans? Whether they will increase taxes or whether they will decrease their expenditure, and how they will prioritize and how they will leverage everything. So all this should be made into a different plans. So these are all made in FRBM Act. These are all the commitment made by the government. But there are certain shortcomings. So government is making commitments, but they are not adhering to the commitments, and they are not having any overlooking institution to see whether their commitments are actually implemented or not. Second, they are taking off budget loans. For example, if the government wants to take some example 10,000 crores, now they are not taking directly from the budget. Rather, they are asking FCI or some Food Corporation of India to get this loan, and government will support them. So this loan will not be mentioned in the budget, but it will mention the budget of FCI, which will have government backing, such that there are huge amounts of off-budgeting loans that are there. So fiscal deficit targets are not achieved. So these are all the shortcomings that are observed, and even the final year is being shifted year on year. So these shortcomings you should write, and you can write about how or brief conclusion regarding how to address these issues. Say, for example, there should be an institution like recommended by NCERT. NCERT has said that we should have an institution to overarchingly looking at regarding implementation of FRBM Act and off-budget loans that the government are taking. So this can be your conclusion. You can write about NCERT committee. So first you can write about what are FRBM Act, what is the objectives, and what is its significance briefly. The most important part of this question is regarding the shortcomings. One, there is no adherence to the FRBM targets. They're just shifting the targets. Like year on year, they're changing their target goals. Second is there is no enforcement. Even if they say it is on 2021, no one is there to see whether they're actually following the medium term strategy that they are given or not. They are not following. And third question is regarding lack of flexibility. Then the fourth is regarding institutional infrastructure for monitoring. Then this is the off-budget financing which you have said regarding Food Corporation of India and government not taking. Then carryover expenditure. So you can write 3, 4 points. Then the conclusion you can write about fiscal council, which is recommended by NCERT committee. And the 8th question is regarding various sources of external borrowing available to the government of India. So you should first know why this question is there in this test series. So recently in Economic Survey of 2021, the government had highlighted that debt sustainability is there. Like debt that India had taken is sustainable. Like India can repay this debt. So as there is debt sustainability, the Economic Survey had advocated to go for external borrowings, like to borrow from outside India to manage India's budget. So based on that idea, this question is there. So they're asking what are different sources of external borrowing. There are different sources. One such source is directly you can go from take loans from multilateral institutions such as IMF, World Bank, etc. And second is you can take from bilateral. Like for example, from a country you can take a loan. Like for example, recently Sri Lanka had taken a loan from India. We are having line of credits to different countries. So this is a bilateral borrowing. And third is regarding commercial borrowing. For example, there is a private institution. For example, there is Tata. So Tata, if they want to get some money, they'll raise some bonds and they'll get this money from some commercial bank in foreign. And the fourth is regarding foreign deposits. For example, you'll have more NRI funds. Whatever deposits they are having is a kind of borrowing for India. So these are the things you write about. And second is regarding what is the significance of external borrowings in India's debt profile. So significance is nothing but it will be more cheaper. We'll get more money to be spending. And third is regarding we have uh, very good economic standings. Like we have very good debt sustainability, very peaceful inflation, and we are growing enormously. So we can repay the debt. So these are the things we can focus upon. But there are some issues. If there is a fluctuation in the exchange rate, it is a very big issue for us. And for sometimes this is one of the issues that you should focus upon. And you can conclude whether you can advocate for going for external commercial borrowing, or you could say we cannot go in this external commercial borrowing. It is in your issue, and you can also quote by saying regarding economic surveys recommendations. So these are the things you should focus upon. First, you should write about what is external commercial borrowing. Then you can write about sources, multilateral debt, bilateral debt. Then you can write about commercial borrowings, non-resident deposits, currency denominated debt. These are all things you should focus upon. Then you can write about what is the significance. You can get cheaper loans. You can crowding out effect can be reduced, and there is structural transformation, etc. But you should write also regarding challenges. Once a challenge is floating exchange rate. The exchange rate can be very much vulnerable to changes. Ninth question is regarding low tax to GDP ratio in India and highlight the steps taken by the government to tackle this issue. So why this question is because recently in the parliament session, the government had said that the amount of tax that is paid in India is only 1% of Indians pay taxes. So in the introduction, you can write regarding tax to GDP ratio of India. It is around 16%, both direct and indirect tax combined. And also you can compare it to other OECD countries. In other OECD countries, it is around 25% to 32%. But in India, it is only around 16%. And most of it is from the indirect tax. Direct taxes, it is around 11%. These are all the things you can mention briefly. Then you should write about reasons. First such reason is we are having a very low tax base. For example, in India, if you take, there are 100 people. Out of 100 people, 60 people will be in the agriculture sector. So agriculture income is not under income tax. So 60 people are gone. So there are only 40 people that are left who are working outside agriculture. In those 40 people, more than 90% are working in unorganized sectors. So unorganized sector, we are not having any data to find out how much income is there and how much to take income tax for them. So these 90% are also out of tax bracket. So only we are left with 4%. So in the 4%, more than 50% does not fall in any tax brackets. That is tax bracket from 1 to 8 lakhs. Like there are less than 1 to 8 lakhs only. So we are left with 2%. In the 2%, only 50% actually pay taxes and 50% evade. So we are having only 1% of Indians paying taxes. So these are the things you remember why you are having low tax base. Then you can write about weak tax administration. Even the tax administrators like IRS officers are finding it difficult to administer or get tax because of high black money, corruption, and also are not having data regarding how they are spending. These are the things you write. Then you can write about complex systems, and then you can write about structural issues. To address all these, you have brought in tax chatter and faceless assessments. These are the things you can write in the next part of the question. Then the government had these are the things which government had taken. First is simplification of laws, then increasing tax compliance. For example, in increasing tax compliance, you can also write about GST network and how if they want to take input tax rate, everyone in the network should be on the GST system. So this thing you can write. Then you can write regarding anti-tax avoidance measures. Then you can write about curbing black money. Here you can discuss regarding demonetization and other GST methods that you have taken. These are the things you should write regarding what are the steps that the government had taken. Next question is regarding what are the characteristics of money. Discuss whether the cryptocurrencies can emerge as a credible form of currency. So first in the first part of the question is regarding characteristics of money. Money is used for payment. So if you are paying something and you are getting a good, then the other person should accept your money. So first is regarding the acceptance. Second is regarding exchange. If you are accepting your money, you should exchange. So your money should have an exchangeable quotient. And third is regarding store of value. Say for example, a company is having a turnover of some X amount of crores. So here money is a store value. So in this way, money, these are the characteristics of money. So money is not based on it is paper money, it's gold money, nothing. It is based on its functions or its characteristics. So that you should write about. Then you can write about how money is there presently. There is a centralized institution which is having a limited amount of production of money and which is having a legal tender. That is, the money is acceptable in every form and every shop. So there is huge acceptance and also exchange. So these are the characteristics of money in the present conditions. So cryptocurrencies is questioning the entire structure of this functioning of money. But first thing is cryptocurrency is not a centralized institution, rather is a decentralized. So everyone will have a say in how much money should be there, how to spend this money. Say for example, token systems, decentralized token system, which now is formed into NFTs or non-fungible tokens. And the advantage of this cryptocurrency is that it is not like we cannot counterfeit. They are all very unique. They are all secured by cryptography. So this thing had provided very much high advantage of acceptance of people into this because of its underlying technology of blockchain technology. So this thing you can write, and in the conclusion, like next you can write whether it is a credible form of money. So you can write it can be a credible form of money because it is decentralized. There is no effect of continuous changes by the government, and everyone have an equal say, which is nothing but political empowerment. And also the amount of cryptocurrencies, for example, regarding Bitcoin are very limited. But if there is unlimited, then it's a problem. And you can also say it is not credible because it is very much volatile. There is nothing backing cryptocurrency. It's just speculative amount. So it is very much volatile. One day it may be 1 lakh rupees, and the next day it can be 10,000 rupees. So due to its high volatility, it is not a credible form. Second, you can write it is not accepted by different people. So acceptance, the first major income, major part of the money, it is not fulfilled. These are the things you can write about in the cryptocurrency, and you can conclude by saying the government had accepted it as a legal tender, but now they are regulating it. So this can be your conclusion. Next question is regarding the inequality. So in income inequality, you can write about wealth inequalities. There is this report, Oxfam report, which says that top 1% in the world takes over around 30% of entire wealth, and 10% in India is taking around 57% of entire wealth. These are the facts that you should mention in the introduction. Then you can write about what are the issues. When you are having such income differences, then the capability of different sections of the people will be very poor. Like the rich will become richer and the poor will become poorer. This is what Gandhi has said and which is happening in the now society. Then you can write regarding the investments. If everyone has equal amount of money, then they can invest in whatever is their priority. But nowadays the priority is based on some oligarchs that who are having huge amount of money. Then we can write about how it is impacting economic growth also. Poor social conditions, human capital we are having, then we are having poor infrastructural capitals, and we can have high tax evasion due to this inequality and poor social infrastructure. These are all the things you can write. And you should write about how to address this. One is you should focus upon improving capability approach. Then second thing is improving the tax collection from rich people. And third thing is regarding the prioritization on social indicators or social infrastructure. These are the things you should write about in the issues to tackle income inequality. So first you should write about economic growth and income inequality. It affects the growth drivers. Then it is increasing concentration of incomes in few people. Then you can write about dampening of investments. Then you can write about steps that are taken. First you can write about social protection, social infrastructure development, or you can write about taxation policy. These are all things you should focus upon. Then you can write briefly in the conclusion regarding recent steps. For example, how the recent budget is focusing upon reducing gap by saying about skill development programs or online universities or faceless assessments or improving e-skill development, e-Nishita programs for online education. These are all things you can write in the conclusion, like what are the programs that are taken during pandemic. Then this 12th question is regarding trickle-down economics. So trickle-down economics is nothing but it is very much famous in the 1800s and 1900s. It is nothing but if we say this is a pyramid, the population pyramid. If you can accumulate all the wealth at the top of the pyramid, like in some hands of very few people, then these few people will invest and which will bring in investment base in the next level, which will provide so much employment opportunities, which will give wages to huge number of people. So income or the wealth that is generated in the top level trickle down to lower level in the form of wages or interest or capital. So these what the trickle down economics is. So they want to accumulate all the wealth and then trickle down. But as you see, this is not successful because when there is an accumulation, trickling down is very slow and is leading to income differentiation or income gap in the people. So to address this, Amartya Sen had brought in capability approach, and this is what the government of India is also focusing upon. Capabilities approach is nothing but improving the capability of the lowest section of the people so that they can bridge the gap and reach the topmost position. So this is the basic idea behind the Startup India program, Stand Up India program, where the government is providing certain support to this lowest section of the people so that they can rise to the topmost epochs. So this capability approach is what government is trying upon. Here you can write the example of Dalit capitalists or Stand Up India, Startup India. These are all you can write about. And in the conclusion, you can write the capability approach issues. For example, there is a prevalent poverty gap in India. So the capability approach is not targeted everyone. Like it is a one blanket approach. And you can also write regarding the social infrastructure in India is very poor. These are the things that we should focus upon in the issues regarding capability approach. So first you should write about what is trickle-down economics, and you can also draw a diagram using one triangle, which is there in the next part. This diagram we should draw. So rich will get accumulated of wealth, then they'll invest in. Sorry, let us see. So rich will get accumulated in the wealth, then they invest in creating jobs, then there will be huge demand. So the entire income will be trickled down. In the capability, we are addressing improving the capacity of the people to take up their jobs on their own, like skill development or providing them their capital, and improving the quality of life of people by providing them education, health, social protection, etc. So these are the things you should write about, and you can quote in the issues in the conclusion. Then the next question is regarding investment infrastructure is vital for accelerated and inclusive society. In this context, discuss the significance of national monetization pipeline. In the first part of the question, you should write about how investing in infrastructure is very much important for accelerated growth and inclusive growth. So infrastructure is nothing but so it can be social infrastructure or physical infrastructure. In social infrastructure, it is nothing but investing in schools, hospitals, vaccination centers, etc. And in physical infrastructure, it is nothing but investing in the roads, railways, airways, etc. So what is how it is important for accelerated growth? So in accelerated economic development, if we have huge infrastructure, then the transportation or the logistic cost will be very much less. So due to the less logistic cost, we'll have the prices will be very low. So our product will be competitive in foreign market also. So we can focus upon exporting our products. Second thing is our product will be competitive within India also. So we can fight with the imports that are coming out. And the third thing is regarding if we have good infrastructure, then it will have huge infrastructural industrial base, which will provide us with more supply chains or value addition materials. Then the next is regarding inclusive society. So if we are investing in social infrastructure, we will have quality education. If we have quality education, we will have better jobs, and the gap between the haves and have-nots will be reduced. Nothing but inclusive society. And also investing in infrastructure will also provide with more jobs and more job opportunities. For example, there is one study taken up by IMF which states that if you are having 1 rupee with your government and you are investing it in the revenue generating or revenue part of the our current investments, then the returns you are getting will be around 0.6 rupees. For every 1 rupee, you are getting only half of what you invested. But in the same way, if you are investing in the infrastructural projects, then for every 1 rupee, you are getting around 12 rupees. So you can write this as an example for accelerated economic development. The second part of the question is regarding national monetization pipeline. National monetization pipeline is nothing but government are having different assets. So, but these assets are underused or unused. For example, there is a stadium in Kuntur or there is a stadium in Hyderabad, which is having activity only during IPL months or when there is only big matches. Remaining all time, the stadium is always vacant. So, due to this, the government is not getting enough returns of what they have invested. So, to get the enough returns from that infrastructure or from that asset, the government had focused upon monetization the asset, like the asset. For example, they have given it to private players. So the private players can organize different parties or different launch events in the stadium, or they can use it as an advertising statement, or they can use it as a concert field. So they can use the stadium as an asset for different purposes. So, but there is no transfer of ownership. It is only based on lease. That is, for example, for this month, like for this period, you can use this asset and you should return it back to the government. So it has so many advantages. One such advantage is the government will have huge returns. Like they'll have huge product or huge returns they're having from the asset that they have invested. So they getting such returns, they can invest in other infrastructure pipeline. So it is a balance between monetization and investing in the infrastructure. So these are the things you should focus upon. So first you can briefly write about how infrastructural investment will have accelerated economic development and inclusive development in briefly. Then you should write about national monetization, what are the assets that are there and how it is functioning and what is the role of private player, role of government. Then you should write about advantages of national monetization pipeline, attract private investments, which is nothing but leveraging their advantage. Then you should write about recycling of capital. Then you can write about overcoming fund crunches. So you get more funds, so you can invest in other things such as NIT, the other things. So next 14 questions regarding industrial policy of 1991 did not achieve the desired result due to multiple reasons. So we are having one infrastructure policy change from 1991, which we are having some objectives which this policy did not achieve. They are asking in that context, find out why India's in manufacturing sector is underperforming. Then they are asking about a new industrial policy. Why we need a new industrial policy? So first you should write about industrial policy of 1991. So in industrial policy of 1991, we had LPG, nothing but we have liberalized. Earlier they should get a license from the government to start any industry. So due to this, there will be more red tapeism and ease of doing business is very low. So the industrial base in India is very limited. Second is regarding privatization. Earlier only government used to play a role in all the production. Like for example, they used to have sugar mills, they used to have textile mills, but now it is all in the hands of private players. So private players can invest their money and they can follow their own corporate mechanisms and they can get better returns. And the third is regarding the globalization. Due to globalization, we are having competition with global players. So it will have more innovation in our country. Then we can get more technology from other countries. So we thought the industrial economy will be booming due to LPG reform, but the industrial LPG did not boom as we have expected. So we should establish this fact, and also we should provide some facts to provide some facts. One you can say about the infrastructure base in India is stagnant, around 16% from 1991 to 2020. For 30 years, the industrial base is only 16%. Then you should write about what are the issues. We are not having cluster-based industries. The laws are very complex, and the skill development is very poor. And even we are having corruption within the industrial corporate governance is very poor. All things you can mention, and you can write as we should focus upon $5 trillion economy. We should have a new industrial policy. Excuse me. So the other thing you should write. Even you can write about inadequate infrastructure. You can link up with 13 question and you can quote NMP and NIP. 15 questions regarding So 15th question is regarding there is a need to revisit India's approach to gender responsive budgeting. Nothing but the earlier budgeting question. You can read directly, briefly go through this question. There is nothing much to explain. Same question. Next question regarding what do you understand by crowdfunding? The word in itself is the answer. Crowdfunding is nothing but funding from the crowd, that is from peer to peer. For example, you are having an idea in your mind and you can go to your friends and they can fund your project. That is nothing but crowdfunding. You are not going to any institution or any cooperative bank, but it is a peer to peer transaction. So this you can write an introduction. The second part of the question is asked regarding benefits and risks. What are the benefits that are associated with crowdfunding? One benefit is they are tapping upon new investment opportunities. Up to now, we are only limited to industries or institutions which are having huge capital base. But now you are tapping into never seen in base. And second thing is regarding the complexities of laws or complexities in the contract system is also very much limited. And the third is regarding we can have flexibility in whatever we are taking, and we can have flexibility in interest rates. So much power is there with the who is issuing the bonds and who is also giving the money. But there are huge risks also. One risk is regarding what if you are funding a startup industry, but they are not making profit and they are not returning your amount to you. Then you cannot complain to anyone. Second, this can be an illegitimate source to legitimize the black money. For example, you are having huge black money with you, then using crowdfunding you can fund some startup. Then your illegitimate money had become a legitimate money. Then it can lead to many off-track crime records also. These are all the things that are risk associated. So to address these risks, we should bring in some regulatory aspects. But present day regulatory aspects are very limited. We should think about bringing SEBI and other institutions to regulate. This we should focus upon in the future. This can be our concluding remark. So first in the introduction, you should write about what is crowdfunding. You can write in the brief words, crowdfunding, as I mentioned, peer-to-peer lending and equity-based crowdfunding. Then we can write about benefits, then issues, then what is the present regulation. So benefits, new source of funds. Up to now we are limited. Then it can be funding for social costs. So social impact will be improved. And the cost of funds will be cheaper because they are your friends. So the interest that you are charging are also very cheap. Then you can have confidence. Then you can use it for innovation. For example, you have an idea, but the banks are not ready to give you any loan. Then you can pitch this idea on any social platform. Then there will be huge number of people who are ready to invest in your idea. So innovation can be improved. But there are huge risks. One such risk is what if they are not repaying your money? Second risk is regarding threat to financial systems. What if no one is going to the banks and everyone is going to crowdfunding only? Then the finance system will be broken down. Then we can write regarding information asymmetry. There is a gap between who is issuing and who is taking. There is information asymmetry. Then escaping regulation, as I mentioned, illegitimate sources to legitimize their income source. Current regulatory scenario is nothing but it is based on income tax. But you can write in the conclusion regarding it should be now regulated using SEBI and Companies Act. The 17th question is regarding debt sustainability being a major concern. Not India, but regarding states. Different state governments, they are having an issue of debt sustainability. Debt sustainability is nothing but what is the length or what is the amount of debt that the state had taken. First, you should think about how much debt the state had taken. And second, you should write about how much interest they are repaying from the debt. And third is regarding for how many years is this debt to be taken. For example, is it for a small amount or it is in a long amount. Then fourth is regarding the capacity of the state to repay the entire debt. So based on these four parameters, you find out debt sustainability of any country or any state. So the RBI had recently had given some reports regarding different state governments about their debt sustainability. So they have identified that the debt to GDP ratio in states is around 32%, which the encasing committee had recommended to around 20%, but it is not declining. But the positive factor is the repayment rate and all this debt is more than 10 years later. So the repayment rate is also advantageous for India, for the state. So it can be sustainable, but it is based on the macroeconomic stability. So there should be no disturbance. The state should have more income levels. But as you see, the income devolution to the state had been reduced, and the tax revenue that the state had generating also reduced. So this is the thing you should write in the issues regarding the rate sustainability, and you can conclude by stating government can support and the central government can set up some independent regulators to overlook the state finances for a sustained period, so that the debt sustainability does not go out of hand. This thing you can say in the conclusion. So first you should write out what is debt sustainability, and you can write regarding gross physical deficit, then debt to GDP ratio, and debt indicating erosion and debt sustainability. Then you should write about reasons for managing state finances, macroeconomic stability, debt sustainability, capital spending, employment generation. And you can write about what are the issues. One is regarding reduced tax devolution. Then revenue estimates are also very poor. Then capital expenditure is very poor. Most of the states spend most of their amount in the revenue expenditure. For example, if you take the condition of state of Andhra Pradesh, in Andhra Pradesh, more than 30% of more than 30, 60 to 70% of the budget is going only for the revenue spending only, but the capital spending is very much poor. So if you don't spend on the capital expenditure, then it will hurt severely your infrastructure of social and physical infrastructure. So it will not be more competitive. And also the generation of employment and the new wages will also be limited. Then GST compensation is also very less. Then you should write about FRBM, cooperative federalism, and you can write about leveraging of public financial management system. It is a system that is based on virtual platforms where we are overlooking, but we should also have an institution set up so that the system can be enumerated in the real world also. So it can act as a checks and balances. 18th question is regarding Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Jan Dhan Yojana is nothing but opening up on, it is a scheme for financial inclusion, which is regarding opening up of zero frills bank account and linking it with your mobile number and Aadhaar card. It is nothing but Jam Trinity. So the government can directly give their money instead of intermediaries to directly into the bank account of the beneficiary. So one advantage of is that there is no middleman, so there is no leakage, there is no corruption. The amount will be directly credited to you, so you can spend on whatever you have. So one more advantage is that now you have choice to spend. Earlier we did not have this choice to spend. Then the next question is regarding the, do you agree? Elaborate with some examples. So first you said about what is Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. It is a mission for financial inclusion. It is based on banking the unbanked, securing the unsecured, and funding the unfunded. So you can also write here regarding the capital that they can raise from the banks so that they can fund their own projects. So again you can go to the question regarding the capability improvement approach. You can quote PMJDI even the capability approach too, where you are saying develop capitalism, stand up India, nothing but the success of the PMJDI only. Then you can write about transformation and directional changes. In the transformational changes, you write how this had completely transformed the system from one present system to completely a new system. So you can write about prevent leakages, so there will be no corruption. Second question regarding formalizing the entire financial system. The financial system is now mostly informal. Like most of the money they are getting is from money lenders, which are having huge impact on their financial credibility and also their lives. Most suicides are due to the money lenders only. So due to this PMJDY, everything had been formalized. So they are having no data also. Then you can write about directional changes in direction of financial inclusion and social stability. You should focus upon social stability also. In the conclusion, every time, even if they did not ask or even if they ask, you should write about challenges. You should write about challenges of infrastructural, and you should write about challenges of skill development or training. Then you can add the financial literacy and product usage, how easy it is or how difficult it is. Then you should write about what are the positive impacts that it had taken also, and how this PMFDY is used for different programs. For example, how it is used in PM Kisan, how it is used in PM Fasal Bima Yojana, and how it is used in for social security providing. All these things you can write in a conclusion regarding how the system is being used for more than one identity or more than one ideology. So next question is regarding much of the export growth of manufactured goods in India since the 1900 is attributed to expansion of world trade and improved competitiveness. However, the potential of product and market diversification. So since 1991, we had followed LPG regime, where we have focused upon liberalization, privatization, and globalization also. In globalization, we are not only getting importing of goods, but we are also exporting our goods. So due to exporting of our goods, we are having a relative competitive advantage because of our low paying, highly skilled labor. So due to low paying, highly skilled labor, our cost of production will be very much low. So we are competitive. The second, we are also successfully expanding our world trade. This you can substantiate by the fact that, for example, in the 1990s, our world trade is only 0.6%, but now it is around 2%, and also it contributes to 18% of India's GDP. So we have focused upon expanding our world trade and also improving our competitiveness using different means. For example, lower skill or improving the capital or improving technology. All these methods we have used. So we are successful in expanding our world trade and also improving our competitiveness. But we have failed in two things. One is our diversification of product. If you see what we are exporting, we are mostly exporting primary products, whether it is rice, wheat, or exported minerals or mines. There is no processing directly which we have mined. We are exporting. So mostly we are focused upon primary goods exportation. So, but you are not having a entire diversification of products. For example, you can diversify by adding food processing industries. For example, we are exporting tomato now. You can use a food processing industry to expand tomato soup. So, but we are not doing it. Mostly our products are primary. We are only boxed to one group of products we are exporting. Then market diversification. If you see where we are exporting all our products, we are exporting it to the European market or US market, because we see these are the two biggest markets. But we are not focusing upon developing markets. For example, you can export your products to Eastern Asian countries. For example, the tiger economics, Vietnam, Myanmar, Thailand, Asian countries, these are booming like anything. So you can export to this. And second, we can also export to Latin American countries, which are also having huge bases. But why we are not exporting it to these regions? Because there is a cultural difference which we should read upon and we should understand to export our products there. And we are not having historical ties with Latin American countries. So we are not having that bond with those people. Third is the lack of intelligence. For example, what are the products that these markets need? We are not having the intelligence. So we should also focusing upon market intelligence for these markets. So these are the things you should focus upon. First, you should write about the fact that our world trade had increased from 0.6%, 1.8%, or 2%. Then you can write about how much it is affecting our India's GDP. Then you can write about improved how we have expanded, how we have improved our competitiveness. Then you should write about product diversification. We are now focused mostly on primary and conventional products, and we are not having upgrade technology. Mostly we are having labor-intensive export-oriented industries that we should focus upon more. Now, for example, toy and electronic industries, which the government had been focusing since 2017 in the economic survey. Then regarding next part is regarding market diversification. We should focus upon Asian and Eastern Asian countries. Then intra-regional trades. For example, SAARC is the lowest intra-regional trade. So we should focus upon South Asian countries intra-regional trade, where the SAARC can be one of the useful forum. Then you can write about the Latin American countries. And the last question regarding skill development using e-learning that has gained importance. So during COVID pandemic, we could not move outside and we could not get whatever we need. There are so many restrictions on movement and to go to different institutions to get different training. So we have turned towards virtual things. Everything is now based on internet. Even this class is based on internet. There is nothing but the sudden shock and the support that the internet had provided. In a similar way, even the skill development programs had been stopped or they have been limited due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But we have adopted it using different tools. For example, you have bought in some platform for registration to whatever skill you needed. Like we are opening different platforms. Then we are registering the foreign incoming citizens onto different platforms so that they can you can be aware of what is our skill that they have garnered and which we should focus upon and what job they can do. Then we are providing the virtual skill training programs and we are providing certification to them. And we are also providing the platform for different industries to interact with these skill training institutions. And we are also focusing upon new age skills using virtual, for example, cyber security, or you can write regarding the artificial intelligence. These are all based on internet only. So first you can write about why this change had happened due to COVID-19 pandemic. There is physical distancing. Due to this physical distancing, we cannot interact with people directly. So this had disturbed the entire economy, including workforce, online education, everything has been impacted. Even the business interactions have also been limited. So we are focusing or seeing towards new approaches. For example, we are seeing towards virtual ways or virtual platforms to interact with people. One such way is e-learning. Here you can write about domain knowledge and soft skills. If you are having knowledge and if you are provided a platform, you can share this knowledge that you are having. Then you can write regarding ease of learning. For example, earlier they have to move to different places. Now it had become universalized to every tier 2 and tier 3 cities also. And the learning had also been very much easier because it is based in the native languages and they are having various flexibility in their curriculum. So this had provided more interest for people to join skill training. But even there are so many advantages, there are also so many disadvantages also. One such disadvantage is that the lack of digital training to people. For example, if you see a worker who is working in a construction site, maybe he will not be aware of any digital literacy. Even though there is cheap data in India, the digital skills that they are having is very much limited. So to address this, we should also focus upon digital training them before launching such programs. In the conclusion, you can say regarding different schemes which are focused upon imparting skill training and imparting the internet to all the regions. For example, you can write by concluding BharatNet, which have provided the internet facility to all the people throughout India. And also you can write about Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, how they are focusing upon developing portals. So in this way, I can conclude this question. That's it for today's discussion on economics test in Magic of Mains. So thank you. We can meet in the next